My guest today is Runsi Sen, the founder and CEO of Ovarcome, a global ovarian cancer foundation she started in 2012 in memory of her mother, who she lost to ovarian cancer. What began as a deeply personal mission has since grown into an international organization that raises awareness, funds critical research, and provides financial support to underprivileged women fighting ovarian cancer in the US and in developing countries. An MBA in strategy and marketing from Rice University, Runsi built a successful career in corporate America before founding Ovarcome. Today, the organization partners with leading institutions like MD Anderson, Rice University, and major hospitals across Houston and has touched thousands of lives. And under her leadership, Ovarcome continues to grow, building partnerships, expanding support services, and staying focused on access, equity, and awareness. Without further ado, let's dive right in. Hi, Runsi. A very warm welcome to Atlanta Diaries.
Thank you, Enma. I appreciate the invitation very much.
Awesome. Take us back to your early days. What was your life before Overcome happened?
Yeah, so my life before Overcome was just an ordinary, trajectory in the sense that I had completed my master's in economics and then I came to the United States to pursue further education. And then I was in corporate America working for a retail energy company, to be specific. And before Overcome, I was a recent mom of a 3-year-old. And so, life was busy, life was predictable, and it was just humming along, I would say, before.
We've had earlier conversations that your mother was your rock,
Yes.
right? So, share with us some of the values or life lessons she instilled in you that guide your path even today.
Yes, and thank you for mentioning the fact that she guides my path even today, even though she's physically no longer on this earth, but I feel her presence every day. So, with that, I will say that she had a very major influence in my life in the sense that through my growing years and beyond, she was the parent that I would always go back to for whatever I needed at that point in time. So, if I had to pick a few, because she instilled a lot of values in me, I would say the value of compassion and social relationships, from sponsoring education for underprivileged children to, helping others out whenever they needed that assistance. My mom was always there. And she also actually volunteered with Mother Teresa. She went and met with Mother Teresa. And this is all through my childhood years. And also the fact that she always used to tell me that decision is your determination. So one of the things that she always told me that take a lot of time to decide what you want to do, but once you have made the decision, take the responsibility or own the responsibility to stand by your decision. And so I would say these two things were very deeply ingrained within me through my years with my mom, and also the value of friendships. She is my best friend still, because there is no one else in this world that I would go to with more warmth and more, with no judgment other than my mother. And so if I had to pick three, I would pick those: the compassion, the value of friendship, and the determination to stick by your decision.
Sounds like such a beautiful relationship. I heard from you that decision making should be intentional and then completely
Yeah.
committed to, right? So, of course, Overcome is one of those very, very passionate decisions you took. But can you sort of reflect on any other decisions? I think that would be a huge life lesson for people listening in.
Yeah, and this is on a personal level. So when my kids were young, their school was about 45 minutes to an hour from our house. And so that was an intentional decision we made because it was a good school and we wanted proper education. But that also meant that there was a lot of commute involved, like dropping them off, picking them up every day. Both ways, it was 2 to 2.5 hours of my time commitment, right? But to me, the decision was intentional in the sense that I wanted to provide a good education, a good, solid foundation to both my children, and just sticking by that decision, even though it was hard at times to manage work and this duty. But we did this for about 14 years. And one of the things I go by when I make decisions is whether I would regret that on my deathbed. I call it my deathbed perspective. So every decision I make, or the major ones in life, I always ask myself, is this something that I'm going to regret doing or would actually thank myself for doing when I'm on my deathbed? And 14 years has passed me, it's behind me. And when I look back, it was a decision that I'm very happy that I stuck with. And now I can say that, they completed education where I wanted them to go and they wanted to go, most importantly. And it was a well rounded 14, 15 years of their lives.
Yeah, thank you. I love that perspective, right? That perspective. So before we, sort of move to your journey of purpose, Runsi, uh, talk to us about your corporate America journey, What lessons did you, do you sort of reflect on till today? And I'm sure they've hold you in good stead even in your nonprofit journey.
Absolutely. So basically, we were a class where, there were people from all over the world. And when you are in such an environment, it just beautifully enhances your learning in the sense because you learn not only what is on in the books, but also culturally and also just, understanding how we all think, differently, but we are bringing the same vision to the table. And so, how different people can come together with the same vision, whether it be a project related work or, an assignment that we were doing in a team or something like that. But it's that shared goal and purpose. And how do you get to that with different perspectives was just one of my greatest learnings that I've had in business school. And then when I went on to corporate America, I had the, privilege of working with the best people around me. And we would uplift one another as we all moved to the next day and the next day. And there were times when company wise things were not as good and sometimes things were fantastic. And so we had shoulders for one another. We also celebrated together. And so this whole thing about the human aspect to corporate work was my highlight that I took away, because all of us can be in front of a computer and do our thing for 8, 9, 10 hours a day, and we can be good at it. But the biggest lesson is, how do you come together as a team, whether you work for a company or you work for a project or you work towards a shared goal. It's how individuals of different perspectives come together and they go on a shared mission. That, to me, even in my corporate career, that was my biggest highlight. And those were some of the things I took with me when I started my nonprofit. So
That's a very interesting lesson you're sharing because corporate world is in a sense ruthless, for lack of a better word.
yeah, I mean, to me, maybe perhaps because I focused on it.
Yeah.
Because, of course, when you are in corporate America, it's a lot of work and you have to be ready for it. I was ready for it because our MBA experience, prepared us for that, like 100-hour weeks. And so that is why I wasn't focused on how much work I was doing. I was doing that quite happily, to be honest.
That was a given. Yeah.
Yeah. So I never focused on, oh my gosh, there's so much work to do. I probably focused more on what are the good things that are coming to me from just being here and with these, wonderful people. And so that's what I remember. It has been 11 years, 12 years that I've stepped away from the corporate career, but that's what I took away, honestly.
What you did say is that I tend to focus on that positive, right? It's just so easy to get consumed by the rigor and the toughness. And that's what you hear from people more, right? So it's tough, it's hard, it's cutthroat, it's ruthless.
I wrote an article on this also, is that important thing to realize that when you are going to work and it's rigorous and you are, spending so much time doing that, why is it that you're doing it? If you can answer that question very clearly, then, the work itself doesn't become that brutal, because to me, the why was very clear at that point in time, that I wanted to give a better life to my child. I wanted to bring predictability and, stability to the family alongside with my husband. And we had some goals and visions to meet. And this was a means to get there. So this was my why. And so because the why was tied to the heart, the rigor didn't, matter as much. So again, it's all a matter of perspective, and that's how I saw it at that point in time.
And I love that perspective, Runsi. So, shifting gears, you build Overcome from the ground up, right? So, share with us the first step you took to turn that, let's call it the grief into actual action. What was that turning point?
Yeah, so that period in my life was very dark and depressing, and not just with the loss of my mother. Having lost her was a big blow to just my overall being. But not only that, I had, some personal situations. I had two miscarriages back to back, and all of that happened all together, like within a few months of each other, right? I was at a place where it felt very dark and to the point where I couldn't see light. And so I was clinically depressed at that point in time, where one of my physicians, she basically suggested that I go on some depression medication to kind of help me with the process. So I still remember she gave me a bunch of pills, and which I kept very securely in a drawer. And so one day I was feeling that that pull of loneliness and darkness and depression and all of that. And so I opened the drawer, and the pills were there, and it was almost like a voice outside of my head that told me that either you can go down this path and take the help that's in front of you, or you can transform your grief and lean into something that brings you that hope and that direction. And so it's your choice. And then I kind of looked at the drawer, and something turned in me at that point. And I was like, maybe there is a way, maybe there is something there for me, somewhere for me, which takes me in a different direction. And then I shut the drawer back, and I was like, let's see where I go from here.
Wow.
So that was the moment where I was sure that I was not going to take that path. I was going to transform my grief into something which will bring positivity and happiness to other people's lives.
Thank you for sharing this. It takes a lot of strength to take such tough decisions. So, what was the next step then?
So once I decided that I'm going to turn my grief into something which brings joy to other people, and via that will eventually bring joy to me, I was pretty sure that I wanted to do something in my mother's honor. And when I was going through this journey with my mother, I saw firsthand the challenges families face. We consider ourselves an educated family, but we didn't know anything about ovarian cancer. And we just saw our mom just slip away from us, within 9 months of her diagnosis, and we were helpless. And so I wanted to build something via which we would give families and the patients, walking through this journey in the future, more assistance, more hope, more information. So that was when I decided that this is it. Ovarcome is the organization. And when I realized that this is something that I want to do, my next question that popped up in my head is, so, okay, what is going to be the name of this organization? And then this whole purpose of Ovarcoming was like ringing in my head. And I was like, and then that eureka moment where I realized, oh my gosh, I could spell Ovarcome with an A, and that would mean overcoming ovarian cancer. It was a moment of epiphany, honestly, that it was past midnight. And I woke up, I went to my computer, furiously typing away, trying to find if there is any domain already available with the name. And no, it wasn't. And then I wrote an email instantly to a web designer that I knew. I was like, can you please grab this domain for me, because I'm running with it. And the next morning when I woke up, I was like filled with that positive energy and that drive, and that I could not wait for Mondays to come so that I could connect with people who could help me bring this vision of Ovarcome into fruition. And so that was the epiphany moment, which literally created the organization.
Superb. So really the grief just sort of converted to wanting to do more. Yeah. So let's talk about that journey. Like, how did you start? Or what are the hurdles, if I may use that word, which came along?
Yeah. One of the things that I was very confident about was my sense of purpose.
Yes.
I was very, very, very confident about that. I'm going to give it my very best. I did not know what the outcome was going to be, but I knew that I was fully committed to it and then some more. And so, one of the few things that I did initially was to connect with few people in the medical community. And so, there was this particular doctor within MD Anderson. He's a good friend of mine now, but through a friend, when we initially reached out to him, he already told me that don't expect an answer because, he's who he is, but we're going to take a shot anyway. So then we took a shot, and then he actually responded within 30 minutes of us sending that email. And so, Emma, I feel that a lot of what Ovarcome could do, especially in the initial years, is because, again, the goodness of people. And we did our first fundraiser and raised $700, and we were so excited. It meant that we had a community already that came and supported, and we got started. And you speak of challenges. So this is not me. This is anyone in the nonprofit sector that will tell you the same story, that you can have bold ideas, you can have bold vision. However, if you don't have proper adequate funding, then you cannot move from point A to point B. And even now, it's just one of the challenges that I did not anticipate, the amount of no's that you typically hear, right? I know that I run a nonprofit. If I send out 100 grant requests, I'll probably get 98 will get rejected. Now I'm okay with that. But that was a very big learning lesson for me as I was going through it, because to me, the idea was fantastic. To me, if we were doing everything right, why are we not getting the grant? It's not about the quality of your work. It's about what is available. And because there's only so much of the pool, right? And so, which is extremely limited for nonprofits. Although, in the last 13 years, our credibility has become a lot more. And as you would expect with any new initiative or endeavors, there were people who, I don't want to say the word good, but they did not see the impact as much. And so, in the sense that I had talked to a couple of people, a couple of physicians also, who said, well, I mean, this is a great idea, but to get to the next level, it's going to be tough. It's going to be difficult. And, but I will tell you that if we don't hear or listen to our critiques, we cannot develop ourselves. So to me, I pay more attention to the people who provide constructive criticism. I mean, of course, we need that kind of positive energy, and none of us would be successful without that. However, if you don't listen to your critics, if you don't listen to the negative voice, you cannot, modify to the level that you would. So one of the things I did in the beginning, I paid attention to the people who were saying, no, this cannot be, this is why it cannot be. And I will tell you, Enma, that helped me so much to understand, okay, sure, this is where the drawbacks of the organization are. This is where we need to hone it. And so I am so ever thankful to those who didn't see what Ovarcome could be. I owe our success strongly to them. So challenges can be converted into possibilities. And that's what I learned in the process.
You use the word drawbacks, right? So do you remember any of those?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of drawbacks, because you are just starting off, you have to differentiate yourself, like the organization, not myself, but organization, from the big players that are already out there. And this is where I would go back to all my learnings in business school, because, that's where we were trained to figure out how we could differentiate our model from somebody else's, because you are so tiny compared to all the big players
Of
out there.
course.
So that could be a drawback for you.
So what differentiator did you find then?
So the biggest differentiators in Overcome, I would say, is first of all the name. So
Mhm.
there are organizations that go by this foundation, that foundation, or whatever their names were. But I am yet to find a name that is this powerful and that by just the name it portrays and so many emotions. It's a clear message to the community about what our organization is. Secondly, I would also say the 5 key symptoms of ovarian cancer, the acronym BEACH, was created by us. And this has been cited in Newsweek, in MD Anderson's website, in many other major publications. And then the term overcomer. Okay. So to me, this is humongous because, when we say cancer, a survivor, right? The word gives power to cancer. When you say overcomer, the power stays with you because it's not cancer. You have overcome or you are in the process of overcoming. So, this whole message of empowerment is through that word overcomer, which we coined. And this is something that now is widely used, not just locally, but globally and nationally by the community. And then the programs we have. So I know, Enma, there are bigger organizations that are providing millions of dollars of research funding, right? So we very carefully curated our programs so that we don't have to be in that space where our other big advocacy research partners are, and they're already investing millions of dollars into research. So we found the spaces where we could have the greatest impact. So we came up with this patient assistance program that we have for overcomers. And this assistance program is called Overcare, and it runs in 525 hospitals nationwide. No other organization is doing something like this. So it's all about focus and finding those areas where you can have the most impact.
In fact, I think it might be a great idea to quickly tell us what beach means, and then we'll move to the next.
Yeah, so thank you for the question. So beach is, like I said, is the 5 key symptoms of ovarian cancer. And as you are probably aware, that when we go to our well women exams, right, we get our pap smears, we get our mammograms, etc. if you're of age, but no one talks to us about ovarian cancer, and ovarian cancer does not have reliable screening yet. What is important to know is ovarian cancer is the deadliest of all gynecologic cancers. So in the absence of that, awareness is key, and that's why we came up with the BEACH symptoms. So B stands for bloating, E stands for early satiety, which means that you're feeling full very quickly. A means abdominal or pelvic pain. C would be sudden changes in bowel and bladder habits. And H would be heightened fatigue, to the point where fatigue is, it's abnormal in the sense that it's not the kind of fatigue that you feel after a long days of work or you have traveled and you're on a hike or things like that. It's more like the fatigue just does not go away, whether or not you have slept 9 hours a day, whether you have taken a nap during the day, or you're kind of slowing down also. This is the kind of persistent fatigue that we included that in the symptom, the acronym, because several of our overcomers told us they had none of the other 4 symptoms. Their only symptom was this fatigue, the persistent fatigue. So every woman, when you go for your well woman exams and etc., be aware of these symptoms. And if they persist beyond 2 or 3 weeks, please ask your physician or your care provider for their answers.
Thank you, Runsi. I'm glad you shared that. Yeah. So, Runsi, let's move to some leadership lessons, right? Share with us any leadership lessons which you had to unlearn or relearn in this new chapter of social impact and advocacy.
Yes, absolutely. So when you work in a corporate structured environment, right, every day is predictable. You go and you do your work and you come back, and there is not a lot of surprises. So that's what I was used to. I had to quickly unlearn that because that was nothing, nearly not as, predictable when you open and when you create a nonprofit from grounds up, right?
Yep.
So every day is different. Every day you're faced with a different kind of a challenge, and there's anything but structure.
Sure.
Because what I did for the past life for my for-profit career with structured environment where you go, you do your thing, sit in meetings, talk to your team and get things done. It's a very predictable process. And everything was new to me, how to, structure a nonprofit, what is the board, how should it look like, and how you bring together the team. And so everything. In fact, in our MBA program too, like the 2 years, as you know, the MBA program is focused on for-profit businesses. But again, I had the goodness of people. One friend of mine, he's a lawyer, a corporate lawyer. He actually filed for the 501(c)(3) and helped us through the whole process. And so everything in Ovarcome was learned on the job with my hands and with my heart. So that was the biggest learning.
But it's also so important to find those like-minded people, those people who sort of are aligned to your mission. So, how did you go through that journey? Like any disappointments along the way, sometimes letting go of people, sometimes not being sure of who you've brought on board. So those are the questions which come to mind.
Yeah. So, I also feel in the alchemy of the universe. I feel like when you are passionate about something, the universe kind of starts aligning to give you what you want. And this is exactly what happened in my case because I had two very good friends through my corporate career, actually, that were with me through my, with my journey with my mom and my miscarriages and all that. And so once I started Ovarcome, they jumped in to help. And they're still the pillars of Ovarcome. That kind of love and that kind of dedication and, compassionate service, you're not going to get from anyone else. And then quickly, as we started growing, we somehow came across the team of fantastic people. And the whole team that we have now, we have been together for several years. And so we have gone through the ups and downs and we understand one another and we collaborate and we have the flexible working policy in the sense that we convene when we need to, but we mostly give that flexibility to everyone to do their part from home and take care of family when there's need. So, again, it has been a journey of aligned souls coming together to bring Ovarcome to the next level. Yes, we have had a couple of instances where there was a misalignment. And, when there is a misalignment, then there is nothing about good or bad in that person. But the misalignment always kind of comes in the way of 100% commitment. And so, yes, we have had those experiences, a couple of those, very rarely, which is a good thing. But, it has been good to be able to understand that this is not working for us, because what you also don't want is to keep an asset within your organization that is bringing negative energy. Especially for me, where it's Ovarcome, it is very important that everybody works with that same level of positivity and compassion for others, because otherwise forming a nonprofit, the whole point is invalid. And, some of the leaders you will meet, and I have also heard in my early for-profit career, have said that don't rule with your heart. And that is something that I've listened to, but that has never been my style. And I know that, if I stop doing that, I would not be able to bring Ovarcome to the level where it is today. So to me, my message is, please do listen to your heart, especially if you're an entrepreneur, of any kind, for-profit, non-profit. Oftentimes I've felt that my decisions are better because I take it from the heart. And that's what I will continue to do as long as Ovarcome is in existence.
Was there any aha moment for you, Runsi, when you said, I was meant to do this? This is exactly what I was meant to be. Like, in a sense, thank you, mom.
Yes, 100%. Because when I was with my corporate, I wasn't unhappy. I was doing well in my career. I was getting the promotions that I needed to get. And life was, like I said, but life was predictable and it was lacking purpose
Mm.
for me that I didn't even know that I wanted at that point in time. So after all this happened and I decided that I wanted to create Overcome. In fact, for the first couple of years, I was actually doing some for profit consulting work while trying to get Overcome off the ground. And then I was like, my heart is not in the for profit consulting work. And that's taking me away from the full on devotion and commitment that I could put towards Overcome. And so then I made the decision, again, that intentional decision that I need to give up my for profit career completely and just plunge on the nonprofit space, like fully. I mean, commit myself fully because this is where my calling was. And so then I started doing that, and it was a sense of fulfillment when you know that you are waiting for Monday to come to wake up and go to work, and you never think that you are working. I mean, I had little children at that point in time, right? So I was a full time busy mom also on top of trying to take Overcome to the next level, but I was never exhausted doing the work that I wanted to do. Never. I was like, put my kids to bed and then go do Overcome work for whatever amount of time. I was excited. And most importantly, it makes me happy. So all the points check off, right? When you are in the space where you want to be. And that was where I realized that this is what I was meant to do. This is my path, not only because transformation of the grief, but this is also the path that my mom showed to me. This is how I came to realize that. So that's how I felt.
Yeah. But I want to ask you one difficult question. I also coach so many women from the for-profit space and non-profit space. I also love Simon Sinek's perspectives. You started with the why, and he talks about the why and purpose. But we talk about for purpose, we talk about that why, right? And I know it's so crystal clear in the not for profit space, and we talk to our team, we hire for culture, we hire for, purpose. But I am now so convinced that in the for profit world, this sentence for purpose is a farce,
Yeah.
right? How does that resonate with you?
I don't disagree. I don't disagree at all. This is where I had to shift a lot in my mindset because when you are trained on that, like business, I was in business school and then I went into the for profit business sector. It's all about profit, it's all about chasing the next big gig. And, it's so much competition to land that next project or the next contract. There is also a certain level of competitiveness between even the co-workers to get to that next level and etc. So yes, there's a lot of that in the for-profit sector. And one of the things that I remember back in my days in the for-profit sector, anything which is soft, um, you know, uh, collaboration or soft skills, for the lack of a better word, is not that well celebrated. To the point, sometimes it is seen as your weakness,
Yeah.
right? That if you are not firm enough or tough enough, or you don't take decisions from your head. And I have been out of the corporate sector for a while, but I hope that that has changed over time because that is unreal. And especially for women, I feel that there's double pressure because intrinsically we are not like that. Intrinsically, we feel from the heart, we make decisions from the heart, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Women can be a lot more perspective and intuitive when it comes to decision making, and those soft skills are kind of brushed over. And again, like I said, I hope that the ability to speak your mind, the ability to say that I have some obligations with my family, I cannot be here today, but I will come back and I will give my 250% tomorrow. Those things are accepted because life happens. Like in my time, I remember when a woman used to get, pregnant or on her maternity leave and all of those things. And there was always that sense of anxiety. Will I have my job when I come back? Or will I have the same role when I come back? Will I be pushed aside? And those things need to stop. And I can go on this because I have some very strong thoughts on how the corporate America used to work, at least in my time. And it can be toxic. It can be not supportive of who you are as a person. And just one more thing I will add is the corporate America is meant for extroverts, even today. For example, in a team environment, or let's say a board meeting that's happening, if you don't speak up, you're seen as someone who doesn't have ideas.
Yeah.
But introverts don't work that way. And so one of the things I would like to see changed in boardroom environments is where people are given the flexibility to write down their ideas, type their ideas, because not everyone is vocal. Not everyone can say, stop, I have something to say. No, not everyone is that aggressive, but that doesn't mean that person is not thinking. So if you give, which we do within Ovarcome, if you are an introvert in a team environment, you are encouraged to bring in your opinion in the way you are most comfortable with. The corporate America is still not a space for introverts, and I would love that to change.
Yeah. Thank you, Runsi. This is something which has been, working on my mind for a long time. And I was very keen to unpack this. And that's the reason why the Trailblazers and Atlanta Diaries are there. Because
Yeah.
those are the women who are actually bringing in that perspective to the organization. They've probably been able to move that needle.
Yeah.
They've been able to bring the vulnerability, the purpose driven perspective, which is otherwise completely unheard of in any corporate world.
Yeah, and I do feel that everyone will say, and you will agree with me that, we have to be ourselves, and that's what we are best at. The
Yeah.
thing is, if you try to change for the company or the organization or whatever it is that you're chasing, you're not bringing your true self to the table. And that's just, life half lived for me.
Totally. On that note, Runsi, how hard was it to, sort of transition from corporate America to Overcome? You could have been an advocate for ovarian cancer, not necessarily by moving out of the corporate world.
Absolutely. Yeah. There were sacrifices that were made because, I was earning a handsome salary when I
Yeah.
quit my job, and I decided to do this with zero funding at that point in time. And so there were corners to be cut, and there were, restrictions that we had to self impose as a family because suddenly one income stream is gone. However, again, my intention was aligned with my purpose to do good in the memory of my mom. And I'm very, very grateful that my family was supportive through this. We stopped taking vacations. We didn't buy that next best thing. And there were limitations that we self imposed. But even though we minimized the things that we could do without, we did not minimize on the things that we couldn't do without. And that we kept close to our hearts, and the rest of it were compromised a little bit. But again, that's one of those decisions. When I look back, I will never say that, oh my gosh, why I did this.
Definitely, yeah. And I saw your son made a painting called Lit in Memory, right? And that I thought was such a powerful and personal tribute, right? So, talk to us a little bit about that because I think that's the mood you were able to create in the environment.
Yeah, so he created that in of my mom, and he's been passionate about painting since he was a little kid. And I hope that that has been instilled in them because they saw me, start Overcome from the ground up since they were little kids. And so they saw all the sacrifices, then they saw the determination and the love, the compassion that goes behind running Overcome every day. And so they help, they volunteer with, at our organization with the different skill sets that they bring to the table. And the only hope that I have is that they continue to keep the compassion in their hearts for others, whether it be, cancer survivors or others in their own future families or things like that, because compassion truly is the driving force behind everything in life.
Beautiful. Share with us a story from Overcome A woman you met, a moment you witnessed when you said, thank God for what I'm doing.
Yeah, we talked about the challenges. We talked about, some days it just gets very tedious. Some just days there are some, like hurdles to cross and overcome. And when we could question, why are we doing this? And those are the moments when I have to draw that inspiration from these overcomers.
Yeah.
For example, I was visiting India a couple of years ago to visit one of our partner hospitals. And so there was a patient that benefited from one of our grants. So essentially, she took a bus for 3 hours, then a train for 4 hours or something like that. And then she walked a little bit to come meet with me. So the only reason she did that is for the profound impact that Overcome has had in her life, in the sense, we provided her with a grant to help her with surgery and everything. So she did all of that, but despite her failing health, to come sit with me and to hold my hand and to say thank you for what you do. And I will never forget that moment that someone took so much trouble to just stay with me or come be with me for 5 minutes because she felt that profound impact. Just recently, we have a travel assistance program. So we helped a patient here in the United States. She was traveling from another state. So we helped her with lodging and food and connection with the physician, etc. So she wrote us a heartfelt card and a letter. One of the sentences that struck out to me was like, my life is better because of you. And she said, I could carry on because of you. And those words are just not words. Those are heartfelt emotions that are coming out, and it's a handwritten note. And what can be more beautiful than that, right? And those are the moments that not only make me smile, but it just helps me reaffirm my resolution as to why we are doing this. And I tell my overcomers all the time that even though I lost my mom, I gained a family through this.
Wow.
And that's what I take in my heart when times are tough. And that's what I will be proud of on my deathbed, that, this is the legacy that we built that will stay on forever.
That's a perfect place to stop this conversation, Runsi.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you very much. Lots of life lessons, and thank you for being a part of this community.
Thank you, Emma. I appreciate it so much.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, do hang on for just one more minute. I have a request for you. If you haven't already, please subscribe to Atlanta Diaries on Spotify, iTunes, or whichever platform you follow. Do join us in our mission to empower and inspire by sharing the podcast with a friend or colleague. It will be great if you can share on the social media platforms you follow, be it LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, or any other. Please leave a review or rating on iTunes or Spotify. It really helps us reach a wider audience. Lastly, I wanted to share with you that many of my coaching clients and listeners have created a cheat sheet with their key takeaways from the episodes. I invite you to consider jotting down 1 or 2 key takeaways as you navigate your amazing journey. Have a wonderful rest of the day and see you next week for another inspiring journey on Atlanta Diaries.